Well, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce someone most of you know, but not all of you. Uh, Professor Matthew Decker, with whom I teach and lead the digital storytelling internship we co-lead together, which he'll be talking about with me later today. And he is doing something that has been a true labor of love in what he'll be discussing today and sharing, I hope, snippets of. And I'm genuinely super excited to have a big reveal of this particular collection housed on the Smithsonian Learning Lab. So without further ado, the amazing, wonderful, and incomparable Matthew Decker.
It's quite an introduction. What's the Yeah, we are recording. Yeah. So welcome to our live audience. It's so nice to see all of you, and I very much appreciate the support. And thanks to all of you who are online. I was sharing with my colleague Gail, who works at Montgomery College as well, that I have been a chair of different presentations throughout the past few days, and I've made a lot of mistakes. So you just let me know if you can't hear me or if you want to see a little bit more of me. I'm going to wander around the room, and so we're going to monitor the chat. Questions, comments, everything is welcome. Thank you all again. So welcome to a collection of digital storytelling pioneers, a Smithsonian Learning Lab resource for all. I've found myself practicing this presentation in front of this slide a few times in preparation for today. And I was wondering, like, how on earth do I get this started? Because it's really been quite a journey for me as a digital storyteller, as a digital storytelling facilitator. And I was in one of the opening presentations today with a number of my colleagues where Antonia asked the question, well, what is your journey to this work? And so I thought I'd share mine as well, because it's kind of funny. It's a little bit unusual, and I would say it's based in happy accidents. So the first happy accident happened in 2018, and Jamie, you spoke about this. 4 years ago, Antonia Loughborough hosted a workshop, and Philippa Rappaport was supporting her. And I don't even know if we were quite in line with what we were thinking for digital storytelling yet, but I think I saw video editing in the description, and I'm a bit of a tech fanatic, so it's like, okay, cool. That sort of sold the tickets to the show. I'll just go for that. And then I show up and I meet Antonia Loughborough and I meet Philippa Rappaport, and they're just this tremendous tag team of knowledge and experience. And they take me through the digital storytelling journey, the process, for the first time. I think a word that a lot of us share is transformative, and that was absolutely the case. And I didn't know what would happen for me after that. I felt a lot of pride in creating my first digital story after that, and I sort of thought that's where it was. I just had this thing that I did. But then Jamie, in kind of uncharacteristic fashion, reached out to me with the vaguest possible introduction or invitation to more work together. We know each other through the English and reading department at Montgomery College. And I guess I forgot to mention that that's my role as well. I'm an associate professor of English. And so I think we're still sort of conflicted about how it was. She maybe called me, she maybe emailed me, but the context was essentially, I'm excited about something. I think you'd be really good at this. Can you help? And that's the extent of it. And we've had so much time working together in writing different projects and like gen ed recertification and accreditation type work. And so we have a good camaraderie. We know that we work well together. And so I was just like, well, Jamie has an idea, I'll happily support it. And then the next happy accident is that your idea is relevant to doing something with digital storytelling. And that ultimately became our internship, which is officially 3 years in the running. We have hired 39 student interns and offered them scholarships for their work. And so it's brought a lot of joy and wonder and excitement to our lives as scholars and as people. And then the next thing that came from that is we sort of continued our connections and our collaborations with Antonia Loughborough and Philippa Rappaport. and we were sort of invited into the International Conference Committee. And I'm not sure if anyone's aware of the makeup of the conference committee, but when I went to the first Zoom meeting, let's just say I was intimidated to the point of being mostly silent. I think I'm lucky if I introduced myself, because I was in the room with all of these people that had tremendous experience and expertise. I think Joe Lambert might have been there. And at that time, I was like, who is Joe Lambert really? But then I learned through the information that was shared that this is a big deal. And a lot of other people were big deals and had so much history in developing this pedagogy. So I wanted to be useful. And rather than just be silent in the background, I decided I would volunteer to be their note taker once. And then that's been my role ever since. So I'm the honorary note taker for the International Digital Storytelling Conference Committee. And as an English educator, I know very well that when you are actively listening and you're very intentionally engaged in a conversation and you're overhearing it, and then you're also engaged in the haptic process of typing, you absorb a lot of information. And I walked away from so many of those committee meetings inspired and excited, and also just seriously brain crushing on a lot of people in the Zoom room. And so that put me on a new journey, which is part of my sabbatical work. I'm going to see if I can get this to go. And so I ended up taking sabbatical in fall 2021. And my strategy was twofold. I came up with two projects. One was I'm very interested in instructional design. So I went back to school. I'm in a graduate certificate program at UMBC, or the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And it's in learning and performance technology, and the focus is instructional design. So I took a couple of courses during my sabbatical semester. And simultaneously, I had this vision for developing a new workshop series for Montgomery College that would continue to support our internship, continue to support our community of practice in digital storytelling at MC. So they don't seem that connected, but what worked out really well, another coincidence on my journey, was the instructional design systems class I enrolled in. The capstone project was to develop a professional development workshop about anything you wanted it to be. So that's where this came in. And it was great because I was just taking that, what I was learning from that experience and pouring it into the design of my workshop series. And ideally, my hope was that it wouldn't emerge as a single hour or 1.5 hour experience. I really wanted it to be rich. I wanted it to be involved. And I know that through our professional development office, it's the elite office, that's e-learning, innovation, and teaching excellence. It sounds very fancy. It is very fancy, yes. They have an Academy for Teaching Transformation workshop series. It's a number of courses. Maybe, I think in a single semester, it could be 5 or 6 offerings in different subjects. But what's nice about them is that they are 3 individual classes over the course of the semester. They're 3 2-hour classes. And so I thought, this is perfect. If we're going to continue to grow digital storytelling at MC, we're going to continue to invite more and more faculty to this work, then this would be the way to do it. This is the professional development opportunity I want to pursue. So that was my fall 2021 semester, was building this from the ground up, coming up with the curriculum for the course, using what I've been inspired by from all of my conference committee colleagues to build a new digital storytelling academy for teaching transformation. And I'm very pleased to say that I was able to convince the elite folks to make this happen. So exactly 1 semester later, in spring 2022, I offered Discovering Pathways for Digital Storytelling in Your Instruction. And you can see a little bit more of the framework for it, what the workshop series was intending to do. We had 3 workshop sessions on February 25th, March 25th, and April 29th. And so I used that knowledge to inform how I delivered the digital storytelling background, context, and beyond. And my hope was, in doing this, that it would serve a number of purposes. So the first is, very close to my heart, the digital storytelling internship. There's a little bit of I want to make sure that we continue to have rich, exciting projects for our interns to do. And you'll hear a little bit more about that kind of work in our next, I guess I'm selling tickets to the show of our next presentation. But I always want us to have a faculty partner in some way and to be able to send our interns into classrooms and to take on that sort of subject matter expert teaching assistant role that empowers them and teaches them a lot about leadership and communication and beyond. So I really wanted to continue to build that foundation. We also have a community of practice at Montgomery College. It's lingered or hovered around 100 members because some people leave the college or retire. And so I wanted to build that as well. My hope was anyone who attends or is a participant of this workshop series becomes a new member of our community of practice and becomes a new possible partner in our work. And then finally, perhaps the best thing is right here in the screen. You'll see Stephanie Palencia and Joshua Sabater, and in the background, there's Mark Segris and Nairine Monforte. They're from one of our earlier cohorts of the internship. I love this exchange, and I have a number of pictures of like this because I guess I stalk our interns and I'll take pictures of them as they work on different projects. But this was a Saturday tech day, which again, I don't really have time to get into that. But essentially they're going over the technology together, and Joshua was sharing a digital story from a previous semester where he was in my class and created a story with Stephanie. I love this exchange. There's like a magic to it. And I think we've talked about it in many different ways this week. There's that co-creative experience, there's that collaboration. And I can remember Stephanie's voice as she responded to his work. Joshua brings a lot of himself to his digital stories. He creates his own music. He is an artist, and so some of his own art is on display. And how she responded to it was really powerful to me. It just stood out to me. So I wanted to create more, it's going to sound very loopy in some respects, but more magic for our interns to experience together, and for more students at Montgomery College to experience if they're introduced to digital stories by their colleagues who learn how to do it as well. So I'm going to take you through the framework, which is absolutely plagiarized from our internship model. But this informed how we were going to do this over the 3 workshop series, the 3 sessions of the workshop series. So I wish I added the days here, but I'll try to speak to them in clear detail. So the first day is specific to this section. When I meet the workshop series participants, my goal is to establish a context foundation and to make them feel like they understand where this pedagogy is coming from. So I do a little bit of talking about Story Center, and I talk about the timeline that brought digital storytelling to Montgomery College and how we use it at the college already. I do my best to define digital storytelling, which we all know is relatively fluid in its definition. And then from there, I invite them to brainstorm in response to 3 prompts. The prompts are, one is the icebreaker is I put up a series of images about travel and food and family. And so they could just choose to respond to one of those images that inspired them. Another is about their journey as teachers and the major influence that brought them to their teaching destination, what inspires them. And then the final was about, it was just asking them to redesign a current assignment. It could be an exam, it could be an essay, but they redesign it as a digital story. So it would be turn that essay, turn that exam into a 250-word script that could evolve into a digital story. They brainstorm, and the goal is for them to experience the intimacy and a little bit of the vulnerability of sharing something personal in this new space that we've cultivated in our workshop with their new colleagues. So they're starting to experience more of the story circle. And then, like every kind-hearted, thoughtful professor, after our first workshop session, I give them homework, knowing that they're all full-time faculty or part-time faculty with a lot of other things they should be doing. But I do give them homework because I want it to be as rich an experience as possible over the course of our semester, and we only have these 3 2-hour meetings. So the first homework assignment, you can probably imagine, is for them to draft their script, and then they're responsible for bringing the script for our first story circle on our second day. And the second day is really packed because not only are they sharing their script, and I'm intentionally modeling the facilitation process, making sure we create a safe space together, making sure they understand sort of the language and the flow of the experience. And they, recognize, yes, this is a bit vulnerable, but we're here and we're listening and we're going to do this work together. And then after we do that, actually, it was a really wonderful first time doing this because we had a smaller group. So I was able to be part of the one major story circle. After that, I had to pivot and introduce the video editing. So I introduced them to our subscription to WeVideo, but I also introduced them to Adobe Creative Cloud Express, which a number of our faculty already use. It used to be called Adobe Spark. And then simultaneously, all in day 2, I'm talking about how to storyboard and then introducing best practices in recording audio. All of this was conducted over Zoom. So while we actually have an audio recorder that we're very happy to share out through the internship, I didn't have access to that. So a lot of the tools of the trade that I share are simply about use your smartphone and put your head under the covers. And that's when you record your narration. Or Jamie, you always say, go to your car and close the door and record your narration there. So I taught them the tools of the trade, made sure they felt more comfortable with the technology. And then their next homework assignment before our final session is to develop their first digital story. And so they're responsible for a draft. I don't want them to feel like it needs to be this finished, polished product. So it's just a draft. And they bring that. I don't really want to call it peer review. That's more for our internship, but they bring that for more collaboration. I really want to have them showcase their work, screen their work, and experience the joy of that to sort of, again, convince them that this is really worthwhile and students enjoy this and it's very empowering for our students. And so that is the scope of the workshop series in all 3 sessions. Oh, and one other thing I'll share is that I'm very intentional about asking them the question, what's next for you, right? So you've gone through this workshop series. I don't want you to feel like I'm forcing you to become a digital storytelling facilitator. That's not at all my goal. But are you interested in continuing this journey? How else can I support you? How can the internship support you? And I would say 80% of my first cohort really plans to work with digital stories moving forward. So that was just such a win. I will tell you, though, that in designing this during the fall 2021 sabbatical, I hit a moment in the curriculum design process. I've developed my presentation and how I want to approach this for the first day and the second day. And then by getting to the 3rd day and developing that content in advance, I was sort of feeling imposter syndrome. I was just like, I'm still a relative newbie. I'm the one who doesn't talk during the conference committee meetings. Like, I don't know if this is right for me to be the lead here. And so that's where I decided I would turn to the conference committee. Like, I know all these tremendous folks. They have tremendous experience and expertise behind them. Maybe I could invite them to leverage that in how I share out this work with my colleagues. So my initial idea is very cute in theory, where I want to imbue this new professional development workshop series with expertise and experience. And I thought, first day, 3 to 5 minute trailer. It's got Joe Lambert, it's got Pip Hardy, it's got Tony Sumner, it's got Philippa Rappaport, right? And it will have these brilliant voices that I'm introducing to people who aren't familiar with the world of digital storytelling. So such a cute idea in theory, but then this is how I approach it because I'm not someone with an interviewing background. And so I ended up coming up with 8 possible people to interview. And then from those interviews, I ended up with 70 unique video clips. So this ultimately, my main mistake here was that I really didn't, as much as I like video editing, I wasn't prepared for this kind of hack job, right? Like I couldn't take all of this rich information and reduce it to a 3 to 5 minute trailer. And so the figurative fly in the ointment was that I ended up asking 10 questions too. So I guess I got really excited. You know, I ended up, I emailed all these folks and was sort of anticipating they would be very kind, but they might redirect me or ask me to think about something else. That wasn't the case. Everyone I asked was just like, of course we'll help you. And then like when I screwed up and ended up asking 10 questions, they were like, no problem, this is no big deal. And so this is, I guess, the data. 10 questions. My shortest video clip of the 70 is 11 seconds long, and my longest is around 7 minutes in terms of response. It was approximately 5 hours of raw video content. And I went back to my colleagues that I interviewed. And it was in an email, and it was very much like a proud begging moment, tail between my legs, where I said, here's the deal, or here's the issue. I have collected all of this wonderful content. A 3 to 5 minute trailer is going to be a disservice to your words, to your work. It's just not right. It's not the right approach anymore. Would you be willing for me to renegotiate? Would you be willing for me to reimagine this? And universally, each one of the interviewees was especially kind and said, yes, not a problem. And I'd like to say that it was me who came up with the Smithsonian Learning Lab idea, but it was absolutely Tony Sumner. So, and I thought Tony might be here, but so Pip, you can let Tony know that I'm talking about him. So Tony and I are part of a subcommittee of the conference committee that's investigating how to repurpose a project we're working on in the Smithsonian Learning Lab. So I'm already very familiar with it. Philippa has taught it to me maybe in numerous other occasions. I use it regularly. And so it was a brilliant idea, and I very much credit Tony with that. So that became my next project. So moving from that 3 to 5 minute trailer idea into the Smithsonian Learning Lab. And I'm really excited that here we are. We have Darren Milligan in the background. Darren, did you create the Smithsonian Learning Lab?
I was part of the team.
You're part of the team. Yes. So pretty cool to have him here. And then Philippa Rappaport, who has been my guide on the side throughout this all along. And so I'll do a quick spiel about the Smithsonian Learning Lab. I think of it as, and I'm going to use language that I've learned. It's a free interactive platform where anyone can access millions of museum resources. And so it could be something quite simple. It's a search engine. So you could search a particular term and find resources that are historical documents. You could find high quality digitized artifacts, sculptures, portraits. And then you can also find collections that other people in the world have created in service to their various projects in their own curriculum, their own classrooms. And I have done that myself. I have a number of collections. They're all unpublished, but I very much enjoy it. So that was the next thing that I decided to do, is to build a Smithsonian Learning Lab collection that would work as a supplement for my workshop series. And I'm gonna actually have, not right now, but I'll have Jamie share out a QR code with you in a moment. But the goal or the layout of it is pretty much like this. I have an opening tile that is just a context builder, like this is specific to my workshop series. And then each one of these tiles corresponds to a question that I asked I asked of the interviewees. And so just to clarify that, my first question is rather blunt in the interview. It's just, who are you? So that corresponds to our DS guides. And then what's going to follow that tile is a series of images of each of the interviewees, and they correspond to a video clip in YouTube where they answer the question. So we'll get to explore that in a moment, but that is the layout and the framework for the Smithsonian Learning Lab. And then I think I've been rather cagey. It's taken me a long time to get here, but these are my interviewees. It's a pretty sterling crowd. And I'd like to say I had like very formal criteria and selection process, but that's not at all what it is. Brain crush. I would probably just go there first, right? Like I'm in the conference committee meetings and I'm learning from all of these wonderful people. They're super generous and super smart, and I turn to them. So Pip Hardy and Tony Sumner of Patient Voices. We have Philippa Rappaport of the Smithsonian Center for Educational Technology. Office of Educational Technology. Greta Jamison of Oslo Metropolitan University. And Tony Loughborough, you might know at this point. She's somewhat important. And then Sarah Ducey, who happens to be my boss and manages the Public Humanities Institute at Montgomery College. Joe Lambert, again, he's done something interesting. And then Burju Simsek, who is of Hacettepe University's Digital Storytelling Hub. And so anyway, these are my interviewees. And I really appreciated this collection, this group of voices, because while they're all part of the same conference committee, they come from different contexts, they come from different experience, they come from very different roles as well. They're in medicine, they're in higher education, they're in an administrative role, they're a digital storytelling facilitator, they're an artist. There's so many different unique voices that I was trying to pull together. And that makes up my collection. And honestly, I know that it's very common for people in my position as a presenter to synthesize that information. And the best way for you to approach it is to witness it, to explore it yourself. And so that's what I'm going to invite you to do for a little bit today. But these are just some of my major takeaways, and they're very specific to my context as a Montgomery College educator. I'll sort of take you through them. My hope was, in recognizing that, maybe I won't have the strongest voice in the room when I'm running this workshop series. Maybe I won't be able to convince people to investigate digital storytelling or to find room for it in their curriculum. I wanted these brilliant people to help me share that this is worthwhile in any course, any discipline. You can find room for it in your syllabus. I really value too, as a Montgomery College educator, we have, I want to say 180 plus countries represented at Montgomery College. We're an incredibly diverse community. We're known for serving an underrepresented population or underrepresented populations. So I wanted to speak to that as well, and my interviewees absolutely did. I love this idea that a digital story can empower someone who has felt mistreated, disenfranchised, underrepresented in some way. And then, this was another big selling point, because a major concern for me is that I'm from the humanities and I work exclusively in English classrooms. So that's how I know to utilize digital stories, and then also with our internship. But I was worried, how do I convince people from the sciences, from technology, from engineering, from mathematics to see room for this? So another thing that emerged as a very powerful point that I would summarize, was that we need to inject humanity into the stories, into the data-driven stories that are being told. And so there's absolutely space for that in your science course. And I think the pandemic especially drew attention to that, right? We had a lot of confusion about the data. We had a lot of confusion about misrepresented ideas and statistics. And if we were able to attach very human stories to that, I think we would, solve problems faster, sooner, better. And then it was really funny for me preparing for this facilitator role to have someone like Pip Hardy say, facilitation is critical, right? And then you're sort of just like, you sit up straight, like Pip Hardy said that, or Greta echoed that. Like, the facilitator is so important in this space of digital storytelling. So it's just, I wanted to clarify that when a professor is introduced to digital storytelling, it's not just the video editing. It's not just, here's an assignment, write a script, and then you're done, right? It's very much this co-creative process, and that's spoken to in greater detail here. How important it is for us as facilitators to guide them through a rich story circle process and to provide the time and energy and enthusiasm necessary for that work. And then also to make sure that when you complete it, when your students complete this work, that there's room for showcase, there's room for, you know, acknowledgement in a broader public venue of some kind. So with each other or in another way. So there we go. Some of my takeaways. And now, Jamie, if you, without further ado, I'm going to have you share out the QR code. So you can actually access the Smithsonian Learning Lab collection here. And I think people in the room can do that with their phones using this, but I also wanted you to have something tangible. So feel free to enjoy this crazy little card that I created. And then for the folks at home, I will make sure I'm going to stop my share for a moment. I actually want to give you a link. Okay. I'm sure you were able to access the QR code as well, but just in case. There you go. So you're welcome to start exploring it if you like. And in fact, we sort of have the gift of time. I was very surprised to be situated in a room that was an hour and 15 minutes long. So what I invite us to do is to explore. And I was also going to share that I branded this as, for myself, as evergreen. I see it as an ever evolving passion project for myself. And that's mostly because I see a lot of opportunity for it. And then I continue to interact with my interviewees. I got to witness Tony enjoying a glass of wine, talking about some ideas for the next year's conference. And he was mentioning how this could be pulled in. And so I'm very excited to continue those conversations. But I know personally, something that we just started with our digital storytelling interns is we've invited them to create their stories in the most accessible ways possible. So that means accessible captioning, 99% accurate and beyond captioning. And I want to do the same for this collection of stories, this collection of interviews. So that's a distinct process and project that I'll be working on by myself. And then I also, I'm going to share the screen so you can see it online as well. Okay. So this is the framework of it. I'm not really sure why these are grayed out. It could be because I access them often. Do you know why?
Yeah, if you go down to the bottom, one of the three on the bottom right.
Settings?
Yeah, under that one, yeah. Reset the progress tray at.
Oh, thank you. So that's telling me what I've been looking at recently?
Yeah.
How funny. Well,
That's pretty new.
that's very cool. I had no idea. Thank you. That's how awesome to have Smithsonian Learning Lab folks in the room. So what I hope I sort of clarified this earlier, but just for everyone in the room, this is just a title tile slide, and you could really navigate the Smithsonian Learning Lab collection like this. And so you could progress forward one by one. And I'm going to enlarge this one. See if I can zoom in a bit. So with my interviewees' permission, they shared this out as part of the Smithsonian Learning Lab collection. I wanted to create, and this is a long-term goal for me, I'd like to help educators and other folks who come to this resource strategize it in greater, strategize it so they don't feel like they need to watch every one of the clips, although they really should. But for people who are more interested in medicine, I would recommend Pip and Tony, for example. For people who are more interested in learning more about how can I integrate this into a data-driven class, I would invite them to work with someone else. From an administrative perspective, I direct them to Sarah Ducey, right? So that's something I'm building right now. I just haven't had it prepared yet for today, but this is a good starting point. So anyone could come and access this piece, learn a little bit more about the interviewees, and then decide, oh, I'm going to watch the full suite of clips that involve Antonia Loughborough, for example, and just take that rich information away from that. Okay, and I'm going to go back. Oh, this is going to be fun. I know how to do this. Okay, cool. And then just to clarify too, so this is not a video, it's just a sort of a guiding tile. And then each one of these that has a picture of all of the beautiful interviewees will direct you to their YouTube clip. And you can watch it directly within the Smithsonian Learning Lab. So it's not directing you to another space, it's right within the Smithsonian Learning Lab. Today, I'll leave this open for now. I did not have a plan to share any of these aloud. I really wanted you to investigate them individually. The other thing I should mention is I am currently protecting this information, and that's pretty intentional because it's still an evolving project for me, and the captioning piece, I currently have this unpublished. But this is a pretty exclusive crowd right now because you have attended the workshop, you are present, you have the QR code, and so you are welcome to use it and to find ways to make it useful for you. And I think we might have until 3:15.
We do.
Yeah, right.
We
So
have
my
lots of
thought
time.
was, it's been a little uncomfortable to sit still for a while. So I was just going to encourage you to check out the Smithsonian Learning Lab, but you don't need to do it in this space. You can go watch a video that you find particularly interesting, learn from someone that you've wanted to learn more about, and then come back. And I'd love your insights. I'd love your questions. Or we could just do the questions and insights now, and then you go and explore. So you tell me what you find interesting or what would be valuable.
Can you watch one or two clips?
I'd like to say yes, but I don't have, I told my team of interviewees that I wouldn't share their work during this presentation.
So maybe go to the questions and then release people
Yeah.
a locked car.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think people might actually, maybe there's lunch still available. So we could do questions and discussion. And I'm very open to, especially, I'm going to continue to turn to my interviewees to ask about ways that this could continue to grow. Because it's very much, I think of it as a co-creative process at this point. So thank you very much. Okay, Jennifer.
How long did it take you to put all that together? What was the time for the interviews and the processing and then the putting it together? It's just dissertation.
I honestly don't know a number. It was in stages. So the interview process was super easy. I think each interview was close to about an hour long. So anyone can do the math. I won't do the math.
Yeah.
So close to an hour long for the interviews, and then it's a Zoom video, so I had to download that and then trim it into its pieces because I didn't want it to be one long clip. No one watches one long clip. I did. So it's trimmed. Yes, exactly. And then I had to upload that to YouTube and then make sure to connect that, link it to the Smithsonian Learning Lab. So there's a lot of time.
And did you have the interview approved? Like, did they review their final?
I don't think I did. I think so. The theme for me this week has been just like the heart and generosity of digital storytellers, and my interviewees have been overwhelmingly kind. I think what I have done is I've shared the original clips with them, or the original hour-long interview with them, but I didn't.
I thought the
Go
questions
further.
were really good too. So
Oh.
they answered the questions written form first, and then they know it was all of the
Well, so I gave them to Pip and Philippa, for example, are here. So I gave them in advance and welcomed them to prepare in advance. But I think my language was, I know you are very good off book. So, and Pip and Sarah, sorry. I gave them to everyone in advance, and I know that all of them are very good on the spot. So they didn't need to prepare. I don't know if they did.
Great, it's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, but it was a joy. Every moment of it was wonderful, and I learned a lot. Sarah, hit me.
So I was fortunate enough to be in Matt's first cohort, and he was brilliant. But I wondered, as you went through that process, which I very much appreciated, and really you're an outstanding facilitator, and I've shared that with you.
Thank you.
What were you proudest of having completed that? first professional development experience?
Oh, boy. Well, one that it seemingly worked. I was, I carry a fair amount of doubt, of self-doubt, so I was thrilled by that. But I think, oh gosh, that witnessing the participants share their stories and speak to why they enjoyed them and what they were doing for them and sort of that transformative quality. I've seen that again and again and again, but to be sort of personally involved with that as a facilitator is relatively new. Especially, it's not as new with our interns, but with other colleagues engaged in this work. So that was very meaningful. And I remember your story was so beautiful. And I also liked just the very unique ways we approach the work. Yeah, so that wasn't a very good answer, but it was the collegiality and witnessing my colleagues do this and engage with digital stories was very cool.
It struck me because one of the comments that was made, I think you said from Pip, about the critical role of the facilitator.
Yes, and it was Pip, it was Greta, it was oh gosh, it was probably uniform across the board. But yeah.
So, I roll that back into your ability to do that because there was an amazing support and camaraderie that was established pretty quickly for such a diverse sort of cross disciplines. And so you can credit yourself with having taken Pip's advice as being a critical facilitator.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think my goal is to be as over prepared for something as possible. And some of you in this room know that about me. And I think in the future, what I'd really like to do is to build in more organically those supplemental support pieces. So I was hoping we would do a little bit more communication outside of the workshop series. We had a Microsoft Teams page that I developed. We didn't use it. And on that same page, I linked the Smithsonian Learning Lab. And I think the only way that we knew about this collection was when I talked about it during. So I want to, and I'll probably go back to Pip and Tony and Sarah and Philippa and everyone else and see if it would be okay for me to screen some of those stories, some of those clips and responses live in a future workshop series for sure.
What was the most fun part of the whole process? Specifically, I think of the interviewing and editing of the interviews.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think it was kind of funny to see my conference committee colleagues in a different context. And so a lot of us, we were just like, I was staying at my parents-in-law's home in Florida on sabbatical, still doing my work, but I was, away, enjoying time away. And then I was entering into their personal spaces, their homes, and it felt like despite our very distinct distance, there's that, closeness, and I got to learn more about them as people, as parents, as children. And one of the stories that really, Pip, I hope you don't mind me sharing something about yours. One of my favorite questions is if digital storytelling experts still create their own digital stories. And so Pip does indeed create digital stories, and I loved hearing that, and I continue to create my own as well. And Greta talked about one that was so beautiful. It's very worthwhile to hear what they have to say, so I would encourage you to investigate them beyond today. Okay, Pip.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say what an enjoyable process it was, and so engaging and delightful, and that just kind of shone through the whole process really, from your first invitation, would you like to participate in this, and then you were so organized and so thoughtful about finding the right times, and it was just like having a delightful conversation.
It was.
So it was a really lovely process. I also have a question.
Okay, and I'll do my best. I think I might repeat questions. I'm not sure if no one's chatting here, but just in case. Okay.
So I actually had two questions. One was that when I read on your slide that a good facilitator is critical. I understood that as
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's just so it's actually hilarious. I have misused multiple words in this presentation prior to today, and I bothered Sally to be like, Sally, I need to make one last minute revision. I sent it to her at midnight last night. And so I used a word that could be taken in different ways, but I meant it's so important for, yeah.
gathered that. But
Yeah.
when I first read it, I was like, oh,
No, that is not at all what I meant. So that is an important clarifying point. A good facilitator is not mean.
So my question is, it's kind of a geeky question, I think. It's about the use of the term pedagogy,
Mhm.
because I wonder whether that is the most appropriate term and
Mm.
why we wouldn't be talking about andragogy in something that
Oh,
seems not pedagogical, at
Mhm.
least in my experience. And I mean, that's just kind of a thought. What's that?
could you share more of your insight on that so I can think about it?
I understand. So my background is mostly in adult education,
Mhm.
and mostly with people who have missed out on further education and higher education last time around.
Mhm.
So what we in the UK call second chance learners, probably.
Yeah.
So andragogy, which was a term coined by Malcolm Knowles, who was
Yeah. Mhm.
just seemed to me to be such a more helpful term than pedagogy. My experience of pedagogy being on the receiving end of it is I'm going to divulge everything I know about this topic, and the kind of what we again in the UK
Uh-huh.
basically to just fill up
Yeah.
with stuff, and that's whereas I think Socrates talked about education is not the filling of a vessel, it's the kindling of a flame.
Mhm.
And for me, I think andragogy is more about kindling that flame and relating to adult learners,
Yeah.
more as equals and less as people that we have to impart our wisdom and knowledge.
Mhm.
So I guess I like to think that I'm entering every digital storytelling workshop thinking I'm going to learn as much, if not more, from these people as they're going to learn from me. I know some stuff, but they're going to teach me so much more.
I'm not sure I can go back and ask Sally to update my slides. So, but you're 100% right, Pip. And when I was, as part of my graduate certificate at UMBC, I've studied the same language and terminology and concept. And you're right, that's the exchange. And I think that's also something that Sarah, you spoke to very well as a member of the workshop series. We really are learning from each other. And it's not that petrol pump experience at all. So I would just say this is going to be revised, and that's the language that I plan to use in the future. I love this idea of kindling the flame, and that flame is illuminating all the folks in the room, not just right. Yeah. Thank you. Mhm, yeah. And Pip is my co-host.
You have a question as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
hi.
Can I ask the comment that was stories complete science? I'm a bit jealous of everyone who's in humanities because I'm in the technological faculty.
Uh-huh.
How do you convince your engineers, your mathematicians, all of those my fellow tech geeks, that the story is important? How do you get them to that
It's
insight?
absolutely still something I'm learning to represent myself as an individual. We have had the privilege through the internship this past semester to partner with a UMBC faculty member in data science. And the way that her name is Dr. Karen Chen, the way she has described it has been so illuminating for us. She recognized, especially as a result of the pandemic too, that a lot of her students weren't able to describe their research in ways that were able to reach a broader audience. And that for her seemed to be like the main concern, the main consideration. And so I think it's about not just this wonderful research paper or status or data set, right? It's about what you can then take this and do with it and disseminate to a broader audience. And I think that's really how I've started to share it out with people in the sciences. It's not just about you and your vacuum. It's about how you get this information out to a broader group that may need your guidance, may need your storytelling to even navigate it, right? So that's just a quick one. Jamie, would you like to
Another
add?
example,
Yeah.
Another person to collaborate with is in computer science, specifically teaching beginning level gamers. And the game is not compelling without the story behind it. So the reason that they sought us out was to help the students work on their storytelling skills because we found them to be particularly lacking in his tech-heavy students. So I think that's another way to communicate with our tech friends and STEM friends about the value.
And if I could just add one more thing onto that, I think that there are passionate people out there doing it, and we sort of go to the people who are leaning in that story direction, because then they create these things like in computing and data science, and then they become sort of inspiration for their colleagues. So I think, I think that's where we tend to, go to the people who already love it, even though they don't know it, but that you can sense that they are leaning in to this process, capitalize on that energy and curiosity and interest. And then when they have a positive experience, they tend to be wonderful convincers of other people that this is a very worthwhile kind of experience. And we've, done it in public science, computing, and data science with excellent and very exciting. We're really excited about where this might go.
Thank you for your question. I hope that helps. Shall we take a well-deserved breather? It's almost 3. Yeah.
Let's give it a
Way to go, guys.
Yeah,
comments,
I can hang
questions?
on. Hi, Gail.
Do we have any questions for Matt online?